The Tharsiri Concord had risen from 60 years of civil war. Their first decree was an ultimatum to Earth: full tribute or full war.
They will kneel. The galaxy will remember our restoration. This backward world cannot refuse.
The diplomatic shuttle descended through Earth's clouds, carrying the ultimatum scroll in a ceremonial case. No honor guard awaited them. Just an empty landing pad. They walked to the gate. Beyond the stone wall, an old man in a beige cardigan was pruning roses, his back turned.
Open the gate. We are envoys of the Tharsiri Concord, here to deliver an ultimatum to your leaders.
The chamber isn't ready. I am only the groundskeeper. Would you like some tea while you wait?
He offers tea as if we are neighbors. Not a trace of fear in those sharp blue eyes. Summon your leaders immediately. This scroll is not to be kept waiting by a gardener.
They'll be along shortly. Let me finish pruning this rose. You are welcome to enjoy the garden.
The gardener finished his snip, wiped his shears on his apron, and walked to the gate, opening it with a calm smile.
You open your own gate. Where are the diplomats? This is an insult.
I've been groundskeeper here longer than most diplomats have been alive. They trust me. Now, the tea?
The younger envoy, Rek, stepped forward, his formal posture softening with curiosity.
Perhaps tea would be pleasant, Envoy Captain. The journey was long.
Your weakness shows, Rek. But learn what you can from this human. Find the cracks in this insulting welcome.
Charles poured steaming tea from a battered thermos into 2 simple ceramic cups, his movements precise and economical.
I've tended these roses since before this compound was built. 40 summers now, one learns patience.
As the old man spoke, Tharn studied his weathered face, the fine white scar bisecting his right eyebrow, the faded ink peeking from beneath his gardening glove.
That scar, and the way he moves. Not a gardener. Something else.
The gardener led them down a gravel path lined with roses, his gait steady, unhurried, as if they had all the time in the galaxy.
This one is a peace rose. Took a breeder 40 years to perfect it. War would have burned it in a day.
You speak of war like a veteran, not a groundskeeper. That scar, it's not from pruning shears.
I served a long time ago, decades before these roses learned my name.
Where? The Tharsiri Concord keeps records of every human officer from the war. Your face is not in them.
Your records have gaps. I was at a place called Koras. I imagine your people remember it.
The name Koras landed like a blade. Tharn's 3-chambered heart skipped a beat in his chest.
Koras, the 8th Fleet. My grandfather's fleet. And this man's scar matches the holos of the Terran commander.
Envoy Captain, your tea is growing cold, and you look unwell.
You were no ordinary soldier. You commanded the ambush. I know your face from the war archives.
I commanded a small force. We did what was necessary to protect our home. That was a long time ago.
The old man turned back to his roses, snipping a dead branch with a final click, as if the matter was closed.
He admits it so casually. The architect of our greatest defeat, as if discussing the weather. Pull up the old military intelligence files. Search for Admiral Charles.
Rek's scaled fingers flew across the datapad, accessing the Concord's most guarded archive with trembling speed. A profile loaded on the screen. A younger human, same scar, same sharp blue eyes, and the caption in Tharsiri script that read, Admiral Charles, commander of Terran forces at Koras.
Envoy Captain. It's him, the same man. He's been here the whole time, and we walked right up to him.
The butcher of Koras, smiling and offering tea. This is not a coincidence. This is a message.
Is something the matter, gentlemen? You look like you've seen a ghost. Perhaps the tea was too strong.
Number. Nothing at all. We were simply admiring your garden. The roses are quite remarkable. You are Admiral Charles. The Butcher of Chorus. My grandfather's fleet burns in my memory.
I am retired now. Your grandfather's death was regrettable. War spares no one.
Why? Why are you here? Greeting enemies with tea. Is this a joke to you?
They offered me flagships. I asked for a wheelbarrow and pruning shears. I chose this garden.
He chose it. He's a living monument, placed here for our arrival. A warning we walked right into.
Rex saw the terror finally break through Tharn's forced composure, and his own scales went pale.
Envoy Captain, the ultimatum. How do we deliver it to him?
We cannot. Not to him. The Council sent us to threaten Earth, not to face our own ghosts.
The diplomatic chamber is ready. Shall we continue inside? You still have a scroll to present.
He knows. He's playing with us. And we have no choice but to follow. My grandfather died at Chorus. Your ambush killed him. Do you remember the names of the dead?
I remember all of them. Every single one. I am sorry for your loss. War takes everything.
Sorry. You say that while holding shears, as if you are not a monster.
The war began when your Concord attacked us without warning. We defended ourselves. I did what was necessary.
In his eyes, the fire of Chorus flickered once more. Regret for the dead, but not for the decision.
He means it. He truly regrets the dead. The Butcher has a conscience.
I would rather prune roses than command fleets. But I will protect my home if I must.
You expect me to believe you want peace. After you slaughtered thousands...
Envoy Captain, do not provoke him. He holds all the power here.
Power. He's not the gardener. He's the living gatekeeper of Earth's wrath.
Your Concord's intelligence has a thick file on me. They know this face. Earth keeps me here because of it.
He admits it's deliberate. A psychological weapon planted for our arrival.
This garden is louder than any fleet. It says we are patient, but we do not forget.
Arrogant. To believe one old man with shears can deter a resurgent Concord.
Not arrogance. Evidence. You are here, aren't you? Delivering an ultimatum to a gardener.
The shears clicked with a precise snip, like a punctuation mark on his sentence.
Tell your council. An old man with roses, and he will do it again if pushed.
He's not threatening. He's making a promise. And we must hand him the scroll.
Envoy Captain, the chamber. Please, let's go inside. The scroll is heavy.
Of course. Right this way. Your scroll will be received with all proper dignity.
The diplomatic chamber was simple. A wooden table, chairs, and windows overlooking the rose garden. Charles gestured them inside.
By order of the Tharsiri Concord, Earth will pay tribute or face annihilation. This is not a request.
Envoy Captain, please. This is a grave error. He is not some minor official.
Silence, Rick. We have our orders. The Concord demands an answer. Read it.
Calm yourself, son. I've read many documents in my years. Let me see what your council wrote.
Tharn's hand trembled as he released the scroll to the old man's steady grip. Charles unrolled the thick parchment, his eyes scanning the Tharsiri script without a flicker of expression.
He reads it like a weather report. No fear, no anger. Just nothing.
He's evaluating it, not as a threat, but as a curiosity. We made a terrible miscalculation.
Quite extensive. Did you write this yourself, Envoy Captain? The wording is passionate.
The Council drafted it with care. It represents the united will of the Concord, not personal passion.
United will, written with the certainty of the young. I've seen this before. It rarely survives its first battle.
He continued reading, his lips moving silently over the Tharsiri script, as if savoring the words.
He's not afraid. He's not even impressed. It's like he's reading a menu.
Charles finished the scroll, rolled it back with deliberate care, and set it on the table before him.
Impressive work. Now, Your tea must be cold. Let me fetch some fresh. Old bones need warmth.
We did not come for tea, Admiral. We came for Earth's answer. When will we receive it?
Envoy, Captain. Perhaps tea is prudent. We have traveled far. Refreshment would be welcome.
Your attendant has sense. I'll return with tea. Then we can discuss your document properly.
He controls every moment, every word. And we sit here like students awaiting a lesson.
Charles returned with a fresh pot of tea, setting it on the table with the same deliberate care he gave his roses.
Please sit, both of you. We have much to discuss, and no battle was ever won on tired feet.
The envoys hesitated. Then Rek lowered himself into a chair. Tharn remained standing, rigid.
The peace rose you admired outside. It was bred after a war much like ours, a symbol that beauty can follow bloodshed, that rose took decades to perfect. A single fire, one careless act, and it would be gone. Much like a civilization.
He poured tea into 3 cups, the steam rising like silent ghosts between them.
Your ultimatum threatens to burn what took centuries to grow. I've seen that fire, I've started it. I know its cost.
He's not threatening us. He's warning us. And he's right.
So before I answer, I must ask, is this document worth the ashes it will leave?
The room fell silent. Outside, the wind stirred the rose bushes, and a single petal drifted onto the windowsill. Charles rose from his chair, walked to the window, and with a precise snip, cut a perfect piece rose from the bush outside. He turned back, the rose in his weathered hand, and approached the envoys.
Take this back to your council. A gift. Let it speak what my words cannot.
Tharn's scaled fingers closed around the stem, careful to avoid the thorns.
He hands us a flower instead of an answer. Insult or profound wisdom.
That rose represents 60 years of Terran patience. Your ultimatum would burn it in a second.
Tharn's hand trembled visibly, the rose quivering in his grasp.
This is no gesture, it's a test. A lesson wrapped in petals.
I will forward your document to my government, but this rose is my personal reply.
No threat, no promise. Just a flower. And yet, it weighs more than any warship.
Let me walk you back to your shuttle. The garden is beautiful this time of day.
They walked in silence between the roses. Charles still carried his shears. The envoys, their untouched scroll, and a single flower.
Before you go, more tea? I've still got half a thermos.
Number, we've had enough of your hospitality. Our mission is complete.
As you wish. But the gate remains open. I'll be here, tending my roses, should your council ever wish to talk.
We'll send a postcard. Come, Rek.
I look forward to reading it. Travel safely.
The gate swung open. Charles stepped aside, still smiling as the 2 envoys passed through like defeated generals.
We came to threaten Earth, and we leave with a rose and a warning. He won, without a fight.
Charles watched them go, the sun catching the silver of his shears. Then he turned back to his roses. Humming an old tune, the shuttle rose from the compound, leaving the garden and its gardener far below. Inside, the 2 envoys sat in weighted silence.
Mission complete. But what do we tell the council? That we were defeated by a smile and a rose.
Envoy, Captain, we cannot report failure. The council will demand our heads.
We did not fail. We delivered the ultimatum. It was received. That is all.
Tharn pulled out his datapad, fingers hovering over the keys. Then he began to type. His claws struck the keys. Admiral Charles is alive. Recommend immediate rescission.
You are ending your career. The council will call it cowardice.
Without a word, he pressed send. The message streaked toward the Concord Council.
He stared out the viewport at the receding blue planet, knowing he had just chosen peace over pride.
The shuttle climbed toward the cruiser, carrying a wilted ultimatum. and a single perfect rose.
Honored Counsel Admiral Charles lives. He greeted us at the gate with shears and a smile. He is the gardener of the Geneva compound.
The message plunged into the council chamber, where 12 members of the Concorde's ruling body had gathered, expecting news of triumph. A counselor with old burn scars across his snout slammed his fist on the stone table. Impossible. Admiral Charles died 60 years ago. Another counselor, younger and already paling, whispered, "If he lives, the Eighth Fleet's fate awaits any force we send." A third counselor rose, his voice dripping scorn. "Envoy Captain Tharn is a coward. He saw an old man in a rose and forgot the Concorde's strength."
His message continued. He offered tea and a warning. "The butcher of Koras tends roses. I urge immediate rescission."
The chamber erupted. Voices clawed over each other. Outrage, disbelief, and outrage, disbelief, and a creeping dread that silenced the bravado. An elder counselor, his scales clouded with age, spoke softly. "I was a child when Koras burned. Their admirals spared our civilians. I vote to rescind." The vote hung in the air, a single voice for peace, but the motion was far from passing. The council stood split, paralyzed.
Tharn watched the transmission end, knowing his career was forfeit, but the rose on his console still held its petals.
The council fell into a tense silence as the tally began. One by one, the votes appeared on the central display. The seventh vote for rescission glowed red. A counselor with burn scars muttered, "A gardener beat us." The scribe began drafting the formal rescission, citing a regrettable translation error. Another counselor, the one who had called Tharn a coward, signed the document with a shaking claw. The seal of the Concorde was pressed into the wax. Finalizing the retreat, the elder counselor who had first voted to rescind sagged in his seat, as if relieved of a great weight. The holographic projection of Earth flickered in the center of the chamber, a silent reminder of what they had almost provoked. The council president announced, "The motion carries. The ultimatum is withdrawn. May history judge us mercifully." The rescission order was transmitted to the diplomatic office on Earth, and the council adjourned in heavy silence. In a Geneva diplomatic office, a young staffer opened the incoming transmission, her expression shifting from boredom to amusement. "The Tharsiri Concorde formally rescinds its ultimatum, citing a regrettable translation error. We apologize for any misunderstanding." The staffer printed the notice, smirked, and carried it outside toward the garden. She found Charles kneeling by a rose bed, pruning shears in hand. "Sir, a message from the Concorde."
Charles didn't look up. Translation error, of course. His shears snipped a dead leaf.
He took the paper, glanced at it with mild interest, and placed it on the garden bench beside his thermos.
"Tell them the garden is still open, and the tea is still warm." He resumed pruning with the same steady rhythm.
The staffer nodded and left him to his roses, the scent of peace blending with the morning dew. The notice fluttered on the bench, the word error catching the sunlight as Charles pruned a new bloom. The Concorde's fleet never came. The garden kept growing, and Admiral Charles simply pruned on. But the matter demanded more than silence. Charles straightened, his joints protesting, and scanned the roses for his reply. He selected a potted peace rose, its first bloom a swirl of cream and gold. A precise snip freed it. Not a card, not a seal. Only the living flower, roots wrapped in damp earth, would carry the Concorde's answer. A diplomatic courier arrived, expecting a letter. Charles held out the terracotta pot, his weathered hands steady.
"Tell them it's from the groundskeeper. No note required."
The courier took the pot, glancing from the rose to the old admiral's placid face. The shuttle climbed, the rose secure in its case, a silent envoy crossing the stars. Charles watched until the light was indistinguishable from the rest. Then, eased onto his garden bench.
Now we wait. Patience is the first lesson of husbandry.
He lifted his thermos in a wordless toast to the receding shuttle, then turned back to his roses, shears glinting in the afternoon sun. A holographic news banner flickered above a Geneva street. Tharsiri Concord rescinds ultimatum. Cites translation error. Charles, bent over a rose bed with his shears, remained unaware of the broadcast. His attention was on the soil. That weekend, the compound gate opened for a different purpose. A class of school children arrived, buzzing with anticipation.
Charles knelt by the peace rose bush, gently holding a bloom for a young boy to sniff. This one survived wars. It was bred after a terrible conflict, a reminder that beauty can follow if we choose it.
A little girl noticed the faded blue ink on his left wrist. "Did you get that in the war?" she asked.
Charles smiled, his blue eyes crinkling. "I was a soldier a very long time ago. Now, I protect my garden."
The class nodded, their questions answered by the simple truth. They moved on, but the girl lingered, staring at the tattoo. As the children filed out at sunset, Charles waved, then returned to his garden bench. He lifted his thermos once more, the garden quiet around him. The day's tension long dissolved. Months later, a Concorde shuttle descended once more over the Alps. The ambassador aboard carried a formal apology, not an ultimatum. Charles opened the gate himself, shears tucked in his pocket, a fresh thermos of tea already brewed.
"Welcome back to Earth. I trust the journey was less urgent this time."
The ambassador, an older reptilian with gentle eyes, bowed stiffly and offered a sealed apology document.
"We understand completely. It's easy to misread things in anger."
Charles didn't even open the envelope. He simply smiled and gestured toward the garden bench where his thermos waited. They strolled along the gravel path, the ambassador's tension fading with each brush past the fragrant roses. At the bench, Charles poured steaming tea, his movements as deliberate as ever. The ambassador accepted the cup with both clawed hands, without a word. Charles snipped a cutting from the peace rose and handed it over.
"For your garden, it's a hardy breed."
The next morning, 2 workers installed a brass plaque beside the gate. Its engraving was simple. Groundskeeper, Admiral Charles Reet.
"I never wanted a statue, but this will do. Now, who's for tea?"
The gate was never closed again. It became a symbol, not a barrier. Diplomats from a dozen systems came to pay their respects and to learn the secret of the old man's roses. Charles welcomed them all with the same ritual, a cup of tea and a slow walk among the blossoms. School children, university students, and retired soldiers came to see the garden that had stopped a war. He never spoke of the fleet, only of the soil, the sun, and the patience required for peace. The plaque tarnished gently in the alpine air, but the gate always stood open. Charles continued to prune, his shears a quiet metronome for a garden that now belonged to the galaxy. And a single rose, the peace rose, bloomed beside the plaque, a living reminder that some things are too beautiful to burn. Evening settled over the garden, stretching long shadows across the gravel path. Charles sat alone on his bench, thermos cooling at his side. He turned his left hand over, studying the faded blue tattoo beneath the glove line. A star, an anchor, worn smooth by decades.
60 years, and they never learn. But the gate is open now. Maybe this time is different.
A nightingale began its song from the old oak beyond the wall. Charles closed his eyes and listened. After a long moment, he opened his eyes, lifted his shears, and selected a young shoot from the peace rose. The snip was soft, a familiar click among the quiet. He laid the cutting on the bench, a promise for another day. Tomorrow, he would plant it. Today, he would just sit, the garden breathing around him. Above him, the first stars pierced the deepening blue. The Alps stood silent, ancient watchers over a man who had chosen life over war,
The galaxy spins, and here I am, still pruning. It's enough.
He let the shears rest in his lap and watched the roses darken, the day's last light catching the dew like scattered diamonds. The next morning, the gate stood open as it always did. Charles was already there, pruning shears in hand, a fresh thermos brewing. A diplomatic runner jogged up, datapad in hand. "Sir, a trade proposal from Tharsis. They'd like your input."
Charles took the pad, scanned the text, and nodded, "It's fair. Tell them we accept."
The runner dashed off. Charles watched for a moment, then turned back to his roses with a quiet chuckle. And in the garden, Admiral Charles pruned on, his shears a soft counterpoint to the turning galaxy. The compound stretched behind him, classical stone bathed in alpine light, the gate always open. Beside the gate, the plaque had tarnished a little more, but its words remained clear. Groundskeeper. Admiral Charles Rhett. Roses climbed the stone walls, their blooms a riot of color against the gray. The mountains stood watch, ancient and silent. A single peace rose bloomed beside the door, and the old man with the scar bent to its care, not as a conqueror, but as a keeper. The gate stood open, an invitation across the stars, and in his garden, the Admiral pruned on.